Hello, 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 everyone. Mike Arnold here, co-founder of Path Trading Partners, along with Bob Iacchino. Oh boy, I can't even start off I would call it a podcast. Boy, it's going to be an interesting one. Hey, hey, hat, waka waka. Not yes, what a rubbish show today. We went up and then slowly bled off. And did you see, that tweet that from the Biden? Well, it wasn't a tweet, but it was released. I saw it across Twitter about the inflation figures elevated. Did you also see Yellen? Did you see Yellen? What did she say? Hold on, I gotta look at this. I mean, it nearly blew my mind. I see no way in which inflation is a decade-long matter. First, it was transitory, and now you're saying you see no way that it was a this decade-long. All these people should be. You want to know rubbish? Yeah, they should all be rubbish. Oh boy, you feel a red day tomorrow. We're in consolidation. Who knows? Fun fact, after triple witching in mid-June, 9 out of 10 times. Well, is it just 9 out of 10? What goes back even farther than that? Because we were in very specific, if that's the last 9 out of 10 years, we've been very specific markets. Hey, hey, Dan Jet. Yeah, we are in a wild ride for the Fed's pretty much baked in. It's CPI. That's going to be the big thing. CPI is going to be the big thing. So that's going to be interesting. I'm just looking to see what else, if anything else was here. So, we shall see. Getting old and trading in this market are not for the weak. Well, sometimes it's just best, like in this, to just sit on your hands, or unless you have an individual setup in something like the futures were all, as Waka Waka put, rubbish. Now, crude was good trading today. Yellow needs to go into prison. You guys don't hold back, do you? 2001, Yellen, 4 trillion would be good even with inflation. 2022, Yellen, 8% inflation is bad. Yeah, and I hope we don't have inflation for it shouldn't last 10 years. I hope if you have 10 years of 8% inflation or even 5% inflation, things aren't good. Oh, that would be very scary. Oh boy, by the way, if you are new here, please do consider subscribing, ringing that bell, and hitting the like button. Longer term subscribers, leave some comments and like the videos. All right, that's out of the way. Now we can get to some analysis. Did you see Natty Gas with the little explosion at the hub in Texas? This is always why you trail with stops. Let's see. We had the crude oil changes and everything else. What was interesting about that crude ramping higher on there? Wholesale inventories were up a bit. Tomorrow, we don't have, remember, it's all Friday, but tomorrow we'll have jobless claims, unless there's some big shocker here. I mean, it's at 7:30 before the major indices, well, before the stocks open, the indices are trading. But the only way this is going to come into play is if there's a major shocking number. Not expecting anything. So that's where we sit. You can see the markets. Your mega caps a little mixed. Pretty like Google, Facebook up, Apple, Microsoft down, but consolidating. Amazon pulling back still after that split and hitting that double target. Tesla up slightly. Exxon and Chevron both up, and then everything else just red. But we're still in consolidation. So, again, what's interesting to me is this has been creeping up over the last couple of days with the bigger rate hike, but don't see it. Don't see it. Don't see them shocking the market. Still slightly in negative gamma territory. For the point of completeness, nothing I was really paying attention to. Let me know if there's anything you want me to glance at after hours with earnings and before. The only thing I might look at is NIO. But other than that, maybe I'll peek in at fuel cell. But that's about it for tomorrow morning. And then everything's for CPI Friday. This is what we're talking about. Again, inside day from yesterday in the S&P. The Nasdaq was not. It eked out a slightly higher high, but not still much going on. Very low range day. Actually, inside day from a couple days ago. Dow, inside day. Everything's coiling into Friday, so it shall be interesting. Russell, little reversal coming back with the rotation zone, and holding up above this key support. So that's where we sit. All done for today. What do you guys think? Well, the gas explosion makes domestic supply cheaper because what they think's gonna, well, I mean, what the trading perspective was that, we're not going to export as much to Europe now. So if you watched, European gas futures and options went up on the explosion because that'll make European, because they'll keep more domestically, and it will increase reserves once they start ramping back up here. They'll cut down the exports. That's the logic behind it. Remember, that's why, let's peek in at natural gas real quick. See this. Now that's a reversal bar straight down to the rotation zone on the daily basis. So that's a reversal bar. This is also why if you're trading tighter, you have to trail stops, because do I have a topping pattern for a natural gas explosion? No, not with this. It broke some key support, but this is where, you put in your stops, and then you got to ride it and wait for something else coming back down. So did we might have put in at least a short-term top? Yeah, we might have. I'm really watching to see if we get that close now. I'm going to be watching for it to return at least to the weekly rotation zone. And this is slightly lower probability double top here. You can even see it on the weekly because it is against the rotation zone. So I mostly focus on the first target in there. But it'll be interesting to see how that continues to trade. Just wanted to cover that since we've been glancing in on it. Let's see. Hello, Brian. How are you? Welcome. Hello, Christoph. Hope you had a wonderful day over in Europe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you see Bitcoin bearish hammer in a daily chart or a cup and handle in a 4-hour chart? Just glance at that real quick. Bearish hammer, not on the daily. I don't. Again, this is still in consolidation. Actually, slightly higher level consolidation. Inside bar. Cup and handle is more of you can't trade this in consolidation as a cup and handle. No. And you're trying to make something out of something. I think you're trying to force something in here. This is just a huge sideways movement. You see it? Now, what the problem is, you look at all these weeks down, trying to get the cycles on the weekly basis turning up. So far, this is a sideways consolidation. And even on a pop, we have the overhead rotation zone. Not saying it can't pop. If we get the pop in the Nasdaq, this will pop too. But the next thing would be for another rollover trade, especially when the longer cycles get to the top. Again, daily are trying to get to the top, but it's in consolidation, so it's really the breakout or breakdown play. Everything else would just be shorter term trading within a range. Scalping against support and resistance, taking shorter term signals against key. If you get a bottoming signal against key support, it's a short term scalp. A topping signal against key resistance is, again, a short term sell. Other than that, that's how I play ranges like that. But you can't read too much into this. The only interesting thing from the bull case is it's making a little higher range than before with the low range, but that doesn't mean anything. So, because I've tested that out, it's just a range shift within a bigger consolidation pattern. And it has very little statistical significance. Tesla, every day we see it pump up and then down 5%. Range is insane, and everything's still reacting off. A lot of the stuff's still reacting off the Twitter thing. Now Twitter's giving Elon, the bot data for him to analyze. So is it, this could go on for a long time. And it's going to get interesting with the Q2 delivery numbers with Tesla. That's going to be the next big thing, besides unless Elon has a meltdown. XLRE and IYT already look like they want to tank again, and they merit. Let's see. XLRE rolling over nicely. Still, I mean, it's in long-term sell, so that's just rolling over nicely, breaking down after getting to the second double target last week. So yeah, it does look like it's looking. I mean, you break below the low from the 2nd of June, yeah, and you're into this clear path move. We could easily see the lower prices. I'd do your harmonics for the next little level down. And IYT transportation, after completing the double, just looks like it's going to break down, especially if we get below 228 into a clear path move. I'd be watching. And remember, if you're watching these things, put up your harmonics and really focus on the retracement harmonics, the 50 to 62.5 to find any support. You get the close below 62.5, you're going to retest this 87.5 to 100 statistically. So that's how you can start gauging of what, especially where to do stops if you're in stocks that like transportation stocks, how to gauge that. Thank you, Christoph. Well, Waka Waka, I want all the data, Waka Waka. London gas going to be insane tomorrow. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting trade. So you see a double bottom where with what? With which one? Was that with Bitcoin or with Natty Gas? With Bitcoin, we don't have a double here. And this would not be a double, even on the higher time frame, because it's not reversing enough moves. There just is not one on Bitcoin. Make sure if you're citing symbols or citing patterns that you type in the symbol, like just put in the symbol that you're referring to, so I know, since I do jump around. Yeah, the Russell does look a lot better. Russell holding up, but everything's gonna trade off unless something shocking comes out tomorrow. Everything's gonna trade off. It's just spiraling, tightening up into the CPI figures. That's gonna be the big one. So yesterday candle is not a bearish candle in Bitcoin. Yesterday's candle on the daily it's in consolidation at the top of, not really, because this, when you start looking at this in consolidation, it loses a lot of its meaning. All right. So this, and look, I talk about candlestick math, but if you start adding up all these candles together, it's really gone nowhere. Since this opened, since you're open on the 10th of May, if you were to apply candlestick math, which I don't know too many people who teach it, but start with this open, okay, and then add in this close. And pretend all these candles, you start with this open and you go to this close. So the open would be, there's a little lesson, 30,078. The close today was 30,202. So if I was going to draw that out, if we were going to draw that candle out, we get something where are my tools? Where do I want? I want a 30,078 to 30,202. Oh, I went to the wrong one again. I need my rectangle. It would be a, let me turn off the magnet, would be a little green candle very little slightly green. How do I fit background? I want to put a background so it'd be a very slightly green candle. And then you'd have your, if we're started here, we'd have a low down at 25,338 and the highest being 31,195. So overall, then you'd get something like this. You'd have, I'm just going to do another rectangle again, but you'd get, you get something like this. Sorry for the horrible drawing. But you'd get, if you did this candlestick math, this would be the body. This would be the high and low of the wick. You get a candle that looks like this for adding up since May 10th to today. You'd essentially get this really long-legged candle that's just slightly green. So it's almost a doji. That's what we've done since in almost a month, okay? A calendar month, the 10th to the 8th of June. You get this. That's where it's helpful to put stuff in perspective. If you just saw this one candle, you go, okay, it's just a pausing candle potentially in a downtrend. But it's really gone nowhere. All right, so keep that in mind. You can always do candlestick math on this kind of stuff and put it into perspective. Just like if we took a look at this, all right, depending on what day you start, but if you started here, it's going to be a slightly red candle, okay, with the high of the wicks being 402.25, the low of the wicks being 40.72 with a slightly red candle. If this reverses tomorrow, like yesterday, would have been a the open from here to close would have been a slightly green candle with the same wick. So overall, this is just really going nowhere, and you can see it. Now, could we easily test the lows tomorrow? Yeah. Could we easily ramp up a little? Yeah. Could we easily just stay in the middle? Yeah. Everything's waiting on that massive number because everything's inflation related right now. You are welcome, John A. The longer BTC holds the 30K range, the higher the chance of it's dropping big. And remember what I talked about we got on the higher time frame that 8 EMA on the weekly coming down to push price. So it does, I completely agree with you. It favors the downward move. Okay, because it's holding still. So your double was in nat gas. Double bottom on what time frame? This is not a double bottom yet. If we come back down, then we could have a double bottom, but we don't have one yet. So if you wanted to come back down, below the 75%, you could actually get a setup for a double bottom, and then above this peak, it's tradable higher. So that could be the trade. A breaking of this peak, because it's pulled back straight to the 50 to 62. So if it doesn't pull back lower and it reverses higher, you can't use double targets. But then we target the first target being this big red candle, and this is a, what do we call it? A clear path move. What do we target? The breakdown zone would be the first target. So let's say it didn't pull back more. Let's just pretend. There's two ways to trade this. It pulls back more. You get the potential double. You use the double targets. It doesn't pull back more. It breaks the peak. You're into a clear path move. And you target. Boy, fun day. You target the breakdown zone as your first target. It pulls back more and keeps going lower. Well, then it didn't hold the rotation zone, and I'd start watching for these lows. Other than that, I'd use the shorter term harmonics for the next projection down, with this being a pausing bar. Okay? Look at that. Look at those harmonics from the high, because this is turning into a pausing bar. 827, 827.20 right here. So you have this key little, look, you can't make this stuff up. Look at that. This prior support area on the candle basis, not the wicks, follow the candles, it was reinforced by this wick, but then look at the next target. Right here at the double, potential double trigger. So if we don't get a reversal move in here, what are my next two targets lower? Boom, boom. And then you get a close below here. You trigger the double. We start watching a slightly lower probability, but we start watching especially for that 50% move into the weekly rotation zone. There is madness behind all this. And here, if you're too lazy to do candlestick math, here's what that bar looks like so far on the week. That's what this weekly bar looks like. It takes it into perspective versus this. Oh, wait, we're red, we're green, we're red, we're green. Well, here's what we look like on the week so far. So what does that mean for me overnight? It means there's probably not much going on. It means we came back down. I was just seeing, broke out of this little channel today. Sorry, I was zoomed out to the upside, stalled out here, creating this horribly sloppy double because the right-hand side and the base were the same candle, at least on the 1 hour time frame, which does have slightly lower probability. So I was watching these for pullback targets. Again, there's just not much going on from a decent setup perspective. You know, tried to form a double, then formed a triple, then So, I mean, I'll just be keying off of this little high here. If we break above that, I'm watching for back about 41.32 and then 41.39. You roll over. I'm watching the very key area for me is about 4100 to 4103. We break below that, I'm using 4096 as a target area. That's just for overnight. Other than that, there is nothing. Nasdaq. Again, it's better to really do nothing. This extended too far, so those targets were useless. Really, Nasdaq, I'm watching if we get above about 12,650, then I'm going to be watching for 12,714. We break down below 12,582. I'm watching for about 12,550 right in here, prior support becoming resistance. You break below that. I'm going back to about 12,478. There's just not a lot of, this is when it's best to sit on your hands unless you, I don't know why you'd have to do something unless you're hedging. On the Dow, if it rallies up, 33,000 is key resistance. Support, we start breaking below about 32,858. I'm targeting about 32,800. Then below 32,800, I'm going off about 32,700. Russell, which we got the comment, held up pretty well. Coming back down, my key resistance now is back into this area, about 1900. If we break below 1881, I'm going back to 1870, and you can see on the daily chart, inside day basing at the first target on the double. DAX key support level is 12,068. This it's actually an area of about 12,000, 243 to about 14,270, 14,243 to 14,270. Crude was the interesting thing today. Crude with those numbers broke higher, so through the harmonics now. So what can we do? We can raise them to this pausing bar, the longer term harmonics of that pausing bar, to give us the intermediate targets. This now would be another stop raise, 124.50 right at the top of here would be another trailing stop raise. And remember, my next target is this 87.5 because we closed above the 62.5. And this double Both these doubles are now off the table. So they never came close to triggering. So even if we reverse, now I really focus on the channel with the rising rotation zone for any pullback areas too. Okay? So that's what that means. What else? Notes. Little inside date on the notes. So really nothing going up. If we rally, I'm paying attention to 62.5 area becoming resistance about 118.20 and key support 117.23. We break below there. I'm watching for the retest of the lows. We probably won't get much of a major move on with notes until inflation figures. Dollar index still testing this key double. I know it's hard to see, but this does actually qualify. But I'm waiting for a daily close before any to get bullish. VIX, slight little reversal, but overall, I mean, much lower close than yesterday, and a lower close. This is the lowest close since back. This is the lowest close since the close on April 21st. So there's not, even with this sell-off, we're just range bound, and the VIX keeps drifting lower. No fear, really. I mean, look at this. You got to put this into perspective. There, look. Just drifting lower. You see, even with those, don't get faked out by candles. Really focus on the closing too. You see, it's not since back in here that this is closed lower than that. All right. Matanshu, did I say that right? The hourly time frame SPX is doing an ABCDE consolidation pattern currently in the E wave now. Not sure. I use some Elliott wave on his simplified stuff. I've actually done a fair amount of testing with Elliott wave, and some of the stuff does not test out incredibly well. We did a fair amount of testing on it. Some stuff tests out fairly decently. Is SPY building a bull flag pattern on the daily? Against SPY, I'd say more is just a horizontal consolidation pattern at this point. You can see here it's an inside week from last week, and it's just sitting here with everything flattening out. So this, again, this is more of a horizontal consolidation pattern at this. I would not call that a flag pattern at all. Well, then you don't have to do anything. Nobody makes you do anything. We're also getting into summer trading. You know, you don't have to trade. You can do other things. You can take some time. I mean, when there's, especially on weeks like this with everything keying off of one number, which we talked about even on Sunday. I said everything was going to be Friday. Microsoft within the double, still just pausing. Again, Microsoft last week a doji, this week slightly red, but still just pausing. Where else do we sit? Still hanging in with NVIDIA. That was the next one I was getting to. NVIDIA. So, yeah, it hasn't, I mean, we've still hit the first target roughly, and it's just pausing. Now, the interesting thing is we've got the 8 coming up. We've got conflicting signals overall. Since these doubles are against the rotation zone on the higher time frame, they are slightly probability. I'm still going with the probabilities. But if we do break down, you know, that's where if we get the sell on Friday, then, you know, it's aggressively move up the stops. Not too aggressive because you got to leave it volatility, but it's then raise the stop, and the pattern then would fail because we've got contradicting patterns. But when you have a double trigger against a rotation zone, it still is well higher than 50% on the weekly. That's why I still got to go with the probabilities of that. The stock market becomes more boring than watching paint dry. Yeah, so again, what I've said, if you don't have anything to trade and you're not, you know, there's stocks that are moving around. There were stocks. I mean, this was fantastic today. Look at Campbell's. I mean, it's still this potential double still completely in play, but this was some fun trading. Nice gap fill play. Ramp back up. That was some fun trading right there. You know, but did you see this? If you were watching it, this qualified, so it filled the gap, qualified as the double. There's your conservative targets. And then the little rollover taking profits in the close. So that was, I mean, there's stuff that's moving with their earnings coming out today. I put that out pre-market. Again, not as a trade recommendation. Overall, there was some great intraday trading on that. But on the bigger setup, you still have a potential double. This did not invalidate it. So it'll be interesting. And again, if you don't find something like this, then you sit on your hands. Or go do something else. Take the day off. Yeah, you have an easy stop level. You do. You can use your stops. Hey, thank you, Patrick, for the super sticker. Thank you so much, Patrick, supporting the channel. Big shout out to Patrick. Thank you. Never fails to impress how well the numbers can fall in line with the technicals. That's why I love this kind of analysis. Is it 100% correct? No, there's probabilities associated with everything, but it gives you, at least it gives me a much clearer picture. And how you can have price action reinforced with your key levels. And look, the stuff I show on this channel, a lot of it I've developed or co-developed. The reason I put it out there is because of the strong nature of it and how it reinforces other things. And that it's not just drawing a bunch of squiggly lines on a chart. People go, technical analysis, just a bunch of squiggly lines on a chart. Well, if you've paid attention to this channel for a while, I think you'd come to a different conclusion for the newer people. Will I please do NIO? Sure, I will do NIO. NIO, again, NIO before the open tomorrow. Just reiterating, if anybody's a latecomer, this was not a double, not into a clear path. The only first target on a break like this, remember, another teaching moment, since this was not a double, coming back to that 50 to 62. Okay, this actually triggered a %B buy after that 50 to 62.5. What should then your targets when it breaks above this level? Since this is almost a super advanced clear path, it's not because of this area, but you have this little, and that's the first target right here. And then if it does, by the way, you still have this major double in play. This price action has not invalidated it yet. So you still have that major double in play. But on the pop into earnings, at this point, for the next levels I'd have to use, if it is going to pop, I'd use these two key levels, and you have a gap fill in here. And then for a retracement level, on the whole move, you don't want to drop below there. But on the most recent move, if you're trying to trail a stop, it would have to be for a longer term play below 1650 roughly, because you also have a gap fill there, and that's the 62.5 harmonic. So I have no idea about NIO earnings, especially with everything that's gone on in China. But if it does roll over, my first target here, you have this gap fill to the close on the 7th. And then you have a second gap fill. You see, this is a big gap. So the bigger support area on the short term would be about 18. And I want to see where that sits with the bigger harmonics. So that would only be just below a 25% pullback with a rising rotation zone. Its cycles are at the top on the daily and in the top area on the weekly, and we are against the weekly rotation zone. So this is this is an earnings play that I have no analysis on. Would I be betting on something? If I had to bet, because it is against the weekly rotation zone, I'd bet on some kind of lower play in this. The only way I could really get bullish, and this would be after earnings, if we started triggering this massive double bottom on the weekly basis. So I'd personally be sitting this one out. I don't have a position in it. I'd personally be sitting it out and then wait for, because you are against the weekly rotation zone. And if it pops back up, if it pops above here and triggers this longer term double, then I have to play. If it doesn't, then we've rolled over and there's potential gap plays to the downside. Sometimes it's just best to not have a play. Now, if you're already long, I'd use some of those key levels for my stop placement. Because even if it returns to this area, let's say it returns to here. Let's say it fills this big gap. Let's say it came out, it missed. Hypothetically, comes back, fills this gap. Let's just do some analysis. This was a resistance area. Resistance, you see it all in here. I'll put a little line there. Yeah, right around there. So you see this resistance, becoming support, and it's an area. Now it's popping up. You have the daily rotation zone separating now. So you have daily rotation zone, the cycles are at the top. So even if it popped back down here, as long as it held this area, even down to about 1750 on a closing basis, you know, it could still be a potential long play. You start getting below here, though, and then this level fails, then I'm watching for the bigger pullback. And what would really solidify it for me is if you use the most recent harmonics, and then you get the close, and then it follows through and gets that close below about 1650. It's going back down. Traders need to find a job till what? There'll be some great trading again. It's just one of those weeks where we don't have much moving and everything's so geared off inflation. This is what happens when you have a major CPI print and there's no other significant news and the Fed is in the quiet period because of the meeting next week. So everything's just keying off of one big event. Is Pelosi buying calls? She bought. Did you see her latest call trading stuff where she bought Apple and Microsoft calls? What would she bought them? She bought them on these lows. I mean, come on. Why is she in Congress? Why isn't she just running some massive hedge fund if she's that good? I mean, her timing is impeccable. For somebody who's, I mean, she's one of the most brilliant traders ever, but of course has no insight to what's going on, what people are going to talk about or anything else. So let's see. Pelosi on vacation? No, she's still trading. With all the China stocks going up, is it safe to buy now or wait a little bit longer? If you're referring to NIO, I'd wait till after earnings tomorrow. I mean, Baba took off. Baba coming back from the dead temporarily. Coming back from the dead, by the way, if you are long Baba, next key area is 134. From a support area, you don't want to see drop back below about 103. But if you're looking at NIO, I'd wait for that, what I talked about with that after that. Alan, send me an email to support at Path Trading Partners. And by the way, if anybody sent over the last couple days a support, the emails got caught in a DNS issue. So they're starting to come through. So if I missed an email and you haven't heard anything, if support did not get me the emails, by the way, let me point something else out on Baba. then send me a new email because we had a DNS issue. It took a couple days to resolve. That was only, it wasn't messing with the website. It was only messing with email. That's your only longer term play on BABA. But everything, it's coming out. The only challenge now is those cycles are getting to the weekly top on the daily and weekly. So I would not be chasing something here. Look, they're also, I don't know how CPI can improve. But again, could CPI print horribly and the market still rally? Yeah. Because those are the markets we're in. Who knows? Nothing's getting cheaper. And the CPI number, you'd think it really measures inflation with all the ways. I mean, look, if you go back to the way it was developed in the 80s, right now we'd be way above 8% inflation. But they have all these crazy things. Look at owner equivalent rent. You want to talk about a joke? Look up CPI, owner equivalent rent, and how they gauge housing and rental costs. Go Google that for a while. That'll blow your mind. You want to see why inflation's even at 8% is tamped down? Now we have mixed stuff like the U.S. used cars have come off their massive run up, but they've also been weighted lower part of the index. It's crazy. Like I couldn't use their numbers reliably. I don't know how they can, because it's a complete joke. All right. Let's see. I'm just scanning through. I don't have time to get through all these 6C futures on a 4-hour chart coming off quadruple divergence. Again, 6C are the Canadian, for anybody who doesn't know. It's the Canadian dollar futures. Barely triggering a double on the 4-hour. Oh, you're talking this double top. Did not trigger on a closing basis against the rotation zone. Would have preferred it to trigger on a closing basis. But it's valid. You could easily see. Now this is the futures. Remember, it trades with the inverse to the FX. So, but yeah, that is a valid double top right there. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the U.S. looking to reconfigure tariffs currently imposed on Chinese goods. Careful with low floaties. Yeah, there's been a whole discussion going back and forth, and I don't need to get into that right now. I'm not seeing anything else. Again, I'm not going to be forcing anything. We'll come back and reassess tomorrow morning. Everybody, that will be the best bet for me. See what if this overnight price action sheds anything. But again, we could see more back and forth trading until 7:30 Central Time with those CPI numbers. And Bob will be back on tomorrow afternoon. So we'll see if he has any thoughts. And then I think he was going to jump on Friday morning too for the pre-show after those CPI figures coming out. So if you're I don't know why you wouldn't attend if it was just me, but if you want to just attend and see Bob too tomorrow afternoon and Friday morning. Thank you, Josh. Again, thank you for the Patrick for the super sticker. Again, big shout out everybody to Patrick for even every little bit. A $5 super sticker helps support the channel, and it all goes back into the channel. So with that, I'm going to bid adieu. Thanks for all the back and forth. I didn't get to all the conversations. Didn't want to just go back and forth with everything. I tune in for you. Bob is a bonus. Well, let him know he's the bonus. He's the icing on the Mike cake. Wait, that did not count. Cancel that. Well, All right, he's the icing on cake, on a cupcake. I'm going to stop now. With that, talk to everyone later. Have a great, peaceful evening. Rest well and get prepared for tomorrow.